Hey, you guys. Welcome to Talk About It Thursdays. I am your host, Karen Bailey. Let me know when you're on. I will be glad to say hello to you. Happy Thursday, everybody. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and get started for today. That way, I don't hold you guys too long. Our topic today is pass the peas like you used to do. And the P's in this particular segment stand for principles. You know, a lot of things have changed. A lot of values have changed, especially family values. And I know everybody has noticed this. This is not just something I'm imagining. People just don't seem to love like they used to do. People don't seem to, be there and support like they used to do. And so that's what I wanted to talk about, you guys. Getting back to those principles, getting back to those things that made us all stronger, that made us all better. Those are the P's that I want to see us pass back, like we used to do. We used to pass things on from generation to generation, things that, will bless the next generation. They always talk about generational wealth as if that's only about money. That's not only about money. Generational wealth is knowledge and wisdom and understanding and having a heritage and having a history and loving who you are, loving the skin that you're in, understanding, what your particular race of people have gone through, just enjoying your ethnicity. Those are those P's that they used to pass on, the older generations used to pass on to the younger generations. Those are those principles that I'm talking about that we need to start passing on. Hey, Jackie, we need to start passing those things on like we used to do. We've gotten away from it because society has us all, basically every man for himself. But that was not the way God designed it. We were here because we all need one another to survive. And nobody knows everything about everything. So it's good to have somebody with some experience, somebody with some maturity that can kind of help you guide your way through this life so that you're not always stumbling, that you're not always making the same mistakes over and over again. It's almost like, the older generation, they see, younger people about to get into something and they just sit back and watch sometimes, and I know it's harder because young people, they seem to not want to listen. Sometimes they have to, get their head bumped a few times before they listen. But that doesn't mean that we're not supposed to be there. We're not supposed to at least try to impart some wisdom. Hey, Andrea, impart some wisdom. So let's start passing those P's, those principles down to family members, to our children, grandchildren, like we used to do. Okay? So the first principle that helps to give you a foundation is learning what your purpose is. That's number one. Number two, learning how to plan. Number three, positivity. Number four, persistence. Number five, perspective. Number six, people. Number seven, play. And number eight, pray. So those are the principles of life that we're going to talk about, those eight principles. Okay, so let's talk about the basics that we need to make a foundation so that we can try to have a balanced life, so that we can make sure that we're doing all that we can while we're here. Okay, and we need to pass down those good things, those nuggets, to one another. It doesn't even have to be from generation to generation. It could be from this sister to that sister, or that brother to that brother. We all ought to be focusing on helping one another be better. Hey, Rashida, helping one another be better. And those are those P's, those principles that we're talking about that we need to pass like we used to do. Because it seems like back in the day, people cared more about you making it than they do now. It's not so much about look at me all the time. It was whole communities. They wanted to see everybody in the community flourish. But we've gotten away from that. And those are the things that we need to get back to. Because when you look good, I look good, vice versa. It blesses everybody. So let's talk about the first principle, you guys, which is your purpose. A purpose is basically just the reason for something to exist and the reason why you do what you do. It makes no sense to get older and get more mature and not have a purpose for the things that you do. You ought to have an outcome that you're expecting, from what you're doing. So finding your purpose in life, we all have one. God created each and every one of us with a purpose. Nobody's here just to be here, just to be using up oxygen and taking up space. There's something that all of us is supposed to do while we're here before we leave this earth. But it's up to you to seek out and find your purpose in this life. Okay? And by being yourself, you put something in the world that nobody else can. God made us all individual. So there's something about you that's so special that nobody else could contribute what you contribute to the world. So that's why it's so important to not try to be like everybody else. It's so important to be authentic. Be true to yourself. Learn to love yourself for who you are, because God put you here for a reason. God put you here just like the way that you are. He doesn't see you as flawed. He doesn't see those imperfections that we're always picking on ourselves about. Oh, my hair's too short. I'm too fat. I'm too ugly. I'm too this. I'm too that. I don't look like her. God doesn't see that. He knows what he put you here for. You have a purpose and you're just the way he planned for you to be. So now it's up to you to quit focusing on the physical stuff, quit focusing on what social media says you need to be, and focus on what God says your purpose is for being here in this world. Get your mind on that, okay? God intended for each one of us to leave some kind of mark on this earth. So the purpose of your life, it is there for a reason. And there's 3 different kinds of purposes, because your purpose will do one of 3 things. Your purpose will either inform, your purpose will either persuade, or your purpose will either entertain. And what I mean by informing is to share your knowledge based on facts, what you've learned, your experience, in order to build up something or multiply. And sometimes your information is to help warn somebody, from making the mistake maybe that you made, from walking into a dangerous situation that you know something about, that you've had experience about, and that ain't what they want. A lot of times we think that, it's not our business. But if you know something is bad for somebody, care enough to at least try to warn them and let them know. If you have information, if you've got experience about that, and say, hey, I'm not saying this, to be ugly, but I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I walked down that same path you walked down. There's nothing better than somebody sharing their experience, informing somebody, because at least at the end of the day, no matter what happened, you attempted to inform them and you let them make their own decision. And you can feel good about that because at least you cared enough to try. So sometimes that's your purpose, to inform people. Sometimes that's your purpose, to be that person that actually cares enough to warn somebody when you see them going down the wrong path. So understand that's your purpose sometimes, to just be that person that's looking out, for other people, or being that person that's observing things. Because a lot of times people go through life not being seen, especially people who are hurting, people who've been abused, people have had situations in their life they're ashamed of. Sometimes you just need somebody to say, I see you. I see you. Don't think that you're by yourself. I know somebody that's been through what you've been through. May I connect you with that person? May I, get her on the phone or get him on the phone and let's talk about it together. That's that information. You've got knowledge. You've got a personal experience about something, and your job is to walk in your purpose, which is by being there, being that person, like I say, that cares enough to see people that nobody else sees. So sometimes that's your purpose. Your purpose is to inform, okay? And sometimes your purpose, number two, is to persuade. Sometimes people need to be persuaded. And a lot of times you don't even have to say anything with your mouth, you guys. When you are truly a child of God, you don't have to go around informing everybody that you're a child of God. You don't have to convince me you're a child of God. Persuading means convince, but not always with your words. Sometimes you can convince somebody with your actions. You can sway somebody to your direction just by how you walk, just by being a kind of person that, when you say something, you keep your word. People are attracted to that because there's so many false people out here. There are so many false prophets, false friends, false everything out here. So to find somebody that actually keeps their word, that shows up when they say they're going to show up, they do what they say they're going to do. And if they can't do it, they let you know, hey, I wanted to do this, but looks like I'm not going to be able to. You persuade people not always by your mouth, by what you say. You persuade people with your actions. And sometimes your purpose is just to walk upright. Sometimes your purpose is just to be that kind person that persuades people that all people aren't bad. You don't know what somebody's been through. You don't know how badly somebody's been dogged by people in this world. And there are people that have just gone through it. They've encountered the worst kinds of people, and they've just been run over and run over and run over. Your purpose may just be to be that light, that purpose of being that person that they can look up and say, okay, this person is different. This person is truly kind. This person is actually sincere. This person is not trying to take advantage of me. This person is not trying to use me. Sometimes that's the purpose that you're supposed to walk in, is just be an upright, upstanding, good person. Somebody that can be counted on. Sometimes that's your whole purpose in life, is to be that, as they say, that standard. That standard. When people think of me, I want them to think of a standard. When they're having conversations and they say, oh, I wonder what Karen think about that, they'd be like, nah, Karen don't play that. No, you don't know her. She don't play that. See, I want to set a standard to the point where people know what I will tolerate, what I won't tolerate, what's in my character, what's not in my character. And I'm working towards my purpose and carrying myself in such a way that people won't even approach me with certain things because of how I carry myself, because of how I value myself. You can repel a lot of mess just by how you walk, who you entertain, who you allow in your personal space. A lot of things we bring on ourselves just by the doors that we open, you guys. So sometimes you can persuade, that may be your whole purpose, is to persuade somebody that life is not as bad as they think it is, or persuade them that there's something better out there. And sometimes just by you walking the way that you're walking, doing what you're doing what's right, holding your head up, being a go-getter, you push other people to be better. So you've persuaded them just by walking in your purpose of being better and continuing to improve yourself, continuing to set a mark and going above that mark and going above that mark. Somebody's always watching you. You become a role model. And sometimes that is your purpose in life, to persuade people that things aren't as bad as they seem, or that there are good people still out there. There are people that truly know how to love, truly know how to give without a motive behind it. So sometimes that may be your purpose. And then your purpose may be number three, to entertain. There are people in this world that I love because they make me laugh. Sometimes life is so hard, life is so stressful. Sometimes that's why I believe God allowed comedians to be as funny as they are, and how they can come up with material, and these actors to be as good as they are. Somebody needs to be able to entertain us, simply because you can't go through life being serious all the time. You need a release of some kind. You need something to take your mind off of the troubles of this world. And I thank God every day for people that entertain. People that have a gift of entertainment, people that have a gift of being able to make me laugh, to make me smile, somebody that's able to make me want to do better. Entertainers, can stimulate you, can make you want to dream again. You can see a good movie and you can see that character persevere and make it through something and do this, and then deep down you'll start believing you can do what you want to do too, when you see that character finally living out their dream and believing in themselves. That's a good entertainment right there. And it stimulates you and it causes you to get excited about life. And sometimes that's your purpose. Your job is to stimulate people. And that's why I do these Talk About It Thursdays, because this is informational, this is persuasive, and it's also entertainment, because I want y'all to have somebody pushing y'all. I want y'all to have somebody here that you can laugh with, that you can joke with. If you post something funny or you send something funny in the chat, I'm your girl. I'm behind you. I'm going to have something to come back with. I want to be that person that stimulates you. I want you to be motivated. I want you to feel relaxed when you come on Talk About It Thursdays, because you need a place where you can just woosah sometimes. And I never want this to be so heavy that it feels like a weight on you. I always want this to be uplifting. I want you to feel better after you've seen our Talk About It Thursdays podcast. So that's the purpose of entertaining, is to invigorate you. I want you to get excited about life. Yes, life is hard, but life is also good, you guys. Okay? And so we have to know our purpose for why we do what we do, and then walk in that purpose. Number two, the next principle is planning. How many people have taught their children to plan? How many times have you gone through life by the seat of your pants and you didn't plan something and it all fell apart, simply because you didn't take the time to sit down and make sure you had all your ducks in a row, that you had everything taken care of, that you went back over it and you got your confirmations on things, this, that, and the other. And then when it fell through, you were disappointed. We have got to learn to teach our children, our grandchildren, our friends. Everybody needs to learn how to plan. You don't have to overthink everything, but at least have some kind of plan for what you're going to do. And a plan is basically just sitting down and deciding, making an informed decision, making sure that you know what you're getting into before you just hop into stuff, and arrange some things in advance, so that when you decide to do what you need to do, then you've got some things in place. That's all planning is. It's just making sure that you're good. Basically, you got what you need in place. You got enough money. I've got more money. I'm making sure, the hotel is set up. I'm making sure that when I get there, I have a ride here, there, and the other. That's planning. That's all you got to do, because it makes things easier for you if you sit down and do minimal planning. You don't have to plan every detail, but get the basic stuff at least planned out, and then you got some wiggle room, to be spontaneous. I wasn't taught that as a child or a young adult, how to plan. We just did stuff, and if it fell through, it just fell through. You just cried about it and you were disappointed. But had I been taught how to sit down and plan and strategize, I think things would have went a whole lot smoother. Okay? And when you plan, it helps you be accountable for what you do. It helps you be accountable. Planning helps you decide how best to use your resources, which is people, your time, your money, and your information. Those are your resources. And when you plan, you figure out the best way to use those things. The people, the time, the money, and the information. You'll manage it better if you take time to plan. Okay? And then planning helps you to do a self-evaluation. It helps you see if I'm moving too fast, I'm moving too slow, or am I right on time? Because there's different types of planning that you do. The first one is a strategic type of planning. This type of planning looks at long-term issues. When you're planning out something, you got to look at it like, okay, is this something I'm going to be doing for a long time? If so, I want to put some things in place so that I'm successful, so that I'm not wasting my time, so that I'm not spinning my wheels, so that I'm not getting halfway down the road and realizing I forgot to do something. I know people have done that. I've done that before. Got halfway down the road, say on a vacation, and realized, oh man, I forgot. Oh no, I forgot. That's because you didn't plan. That's because you didn't strategize and make sure that you had what you needed for the long term. Okay? And also when you strategize, you make room for change. You don't strategize just on what can go right. You strategize on what you're going to do if something goes wrong. You need to learn how to do both. And you have to understand some problems aren't solved overnight. It may take months, years, decades to resolve certain things and decades to reach certain goals. So when it's a long-term thing, you've got to plan for, like I say, the good times, and you've got to plan for the bad. There's no sense in putting all your energy in something and getting 10 years down the road and then quitting because something bad happened because you didn't plan, for something that could possibly go wrong. Your mind was set on everything going right. Because that's a foolish way to plan, because anybody knows that in life, just like things can go wrong, there's always an opportunity for things to be right and opportunity for things to go wrong. And some things you have to do step by step. Things like your credit repair. Think about how long it takes to repair your credit. Look how long it took you to mess it up. You have got to be consistent. You've got to strategize. You've got to figure out what bills I'm going to pay off, which ones I'm going to pay down. Am I going to call the creditor? Am I going to let it ride on my credit report? What can I do to fix this? That's a long-term plan. Paying off a house, a mortgage, long-term plan. Am I going to pay extra? Am I going to do this? Am I going to refinance? All of that stuff takes planning. Getting a degree or a certificate in college, that takes time, because if you've got a family, you got to strategize on how you're going to get everybody where they need to be, have time to study, be able to take care of the spouse if you have one, be able to do your house cleaning, be able to take care of your yard. All of that requires strategy. And then what if something happens? What if somebody gets sick? What if this happens? What if that happens? You have to be able to strategize for all sides of that, not just one direction, because like life, anything can happen. When you're fighting an addiction or a mental illness, that's not something that's going to happen overnight. There's going to be times where you're going to do good. There's going to be times when you fall off the wagon. You got to have a plan in place for when you mess up or when life messes you up. Because either one can happen. We're human. And this is life. It's unpredictable. So strategic planning says, okay, well, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. I may not want to have to do this, but this is my plan if this doesn't go the way that I need it to go. Recovering from a mental illness or dealing with a mental illness, that's a lifetime thing, and you got to be strategic, seeing your psychiatrist, seeing your regular doctor, being on your medicines. If this medicine has side effects, what am I going to do? You've got to strategize those things. And then the next type of planning is contingency planning. And this kind of planning comes into play and is helpful when there's circumstances that could possibly change. You always have to have a plan B. Sometimes you even need a plan C, you guys, because when you're dealing with people, Sometimes people will be stand up, sometimes people will come through, and sometimes people will let you down. So you always want to have a plan A and a plan B, and sometimes depending on who you're dealing with, you might want to have a plan C. And then you just have to do the best that you can. And sometimes things still don't work out, even when you do your best. That's why you have to always have a plan B, something to fall back on, just in case. And when I'm talking about is situations like starting a new career. What if you start this new career and you don't like it? Make sure you hold on to your license. Make sure you're in good standing, with the employer that you left. You may move to a new location and you decide you don't like it over there. You want to go back to work where you wanted to. And I tell people all the time, quit just quitting these jobs and not giving your 2 weeks notice, because you're making yourself non-rehirable. And that's crazy to do that, because you never know what life is going to bring, where you may have to go back over that bridge again. You may not want to go back over that bridge, but if you have to, leave in a good standing so that when they do see your name come across the application, yours is the first one they pull, because they remember what a good employee you were, or what a good attitude you had, or how helpful you were. Stop leaving these jobs and telling people off and walking out, because you never know when you may have to come back down that road again. So starting a new career, it has its challenges. And if it's not something that you find that you really like or you want to do, always have something to fall back on. Planning a vacation. You cannot predict the weather. Always have a plan B. If you've already taken that time off from work, flights being delayed, flights being canceled, bad weather where you're trying to go. You don't just stop living because something happens. Have a plan B just in case that vacation doesn't work out. Another situation is your living situation. Might be with roommates, might be a significant other. People are people. And sometimes you can get along in a living situation, sometimes you can't. It makes no sense to end up homeless because you didn't plan on, what if this doesn't work out with me and so and so? What if me and so can't live together? Have a backup plan, you guys. Even something as simple, ladies, as planning an outfit for a specific occasion. A lot of times, with women, our weight changes, this, that, and the other. Always have more than one outfit, that you can switch over to, because it keeps you from getting frustrated. It keeps you from getting disappointed, and that way, if one doesn't work out for you, or if you decide you don't like it, you always have a backup. And that's just a simple thing. And then business planning is a different type of planning. This contains contingencies for businesses. And it talks about processes, how we're going to run the business, assets, liabilities, HR, business partners. You got to plan all that stuff out. You don't just wake up one day and say, "Ooh, I'm going to start a business," and open a door and say, "Y'all come on in." If you don't have processes in place, you don't know what your assets are and what your liabilities are, you don't have a good HR department in place, you got business partners that you haven't proven to be trustworthy, then you're going to have some problems. That's why it's so important that you take time, and that's why banks always want you to have a business plan, because they need to see how you're going to do business, what kind of homework you've done, what you expect from that business, this, that, and the other. That's business planning. And then 4 is operational planning. And operational planning is basically how you plan to operate. That's all it is. How you plan on doing what you're doing. That's operational practices, you guys, and planning. So those are the different types of planning, and that's why it's so important, because all of that will benefit you in some way if you take time to think about how you're going to do what you do and what time frame you're going to get it done. It saves a whole lot of time, a whole lot of frustration, and more than likely you're going to reach your goals a whole lot faster just simply by planning. And that's why it's so important that we teach young people how to do this, and we make them understand that life is not about just waking up and just doing what you want to do today. You need to have a plan. You need to have some goals in mind, something that you're trying to do with your life. It gives you a reason to get excited in the morning when you see that you're a step closer to what you're trying to do. And we need to instill that into our young people. And I see that that's lost in so many of them. They're just riding around. They're just doing whatever they want to do. And they couldn't answer you if you told them what their 5-year plan was or what you plan to be doing in a year. They have no idea. They haven't even thought that far. But that's our fault because we have not passed that particular P to them. So that's why we're talking today. The next P or principle is positivity. Positivity is simply how you view your life and this world around you and what you want to project, what you want to put out there. That's your positivity. You have to make up your mind that what you put out there is going to represent you. And you do reap what you sow. So what you put out there, you tend to get back. So how you view your life, what you speak over yourself, it all has power and it will come back to you. So that's why it's so important to speak positively, because that's what you want to come back to you. Speak what you want to see. And positivity never hurt anybody. Negativity hurts everybody. Negativity has never done anything but cause pain. Positivity, at least you're putting something out in the atmosphere. It may not help this person, but you never know who's listening. You never know who's watching you that needs to see your positive attitude, that needs to see you walking in a direction that says, you know what, I got this. Yeah, life is okay. I know that happened, but you know what? I'm going to be all right. That's that positivity we need to be putting out into the world, because things are going to happen to all of us. But it's how we handle it and how we carry ourselves after it happens that matters. Positivity is definitely a choice. You have to choose it every day. And you cannot base your happiness off of what happens to you. Bad things happen to good people. We don't always understand it. We'll never understand it. But it's about how you recover, how you respond, and how you receive what is happening to you. Because a lot of times, people receive that bad thing as, I'm a bad person. I deserve this. If I'd have been a better person, or if I'd have been like so and so, this wouldn't have happened to me. That's not necessarily true. Or if I'd have been born in a certain neighborhood, or this, that, and the other, that's not necessarily true. Like I said, bad things happen to people no matter what your pedigree is, no matter where you live, no matter how much money you or your parents have. It doesn't matter. Things happen. Life happens. But it's how you respond, how you receive it, and how you recover from it that's going to matter. A positive attitude leads to a positive life. Anytime I've gotten up and said, oh, I hope this not going to be a bad day, or this looks like it's going to be a bad day, this, that, and the other, I have spoken those things, and it's like I went through hell that day. And it was all because of my words when I got up that morning. It's what I put out in the atmosphere, and guess what? The universe gave me exactly what I said. And so you have to be careful about that. And learning to let go and forgiving the past leads to a better outlook and a perspective concerning your future. When you let go of that past stuff, you forgive yourself for the stupid stuff you did, which we all did stupid stuff. We were all naive. We all, were hard-headed at sometimes. And like I said, we had to learn our lessons sometimes the hard way. but you have to let go of that stuff and forgive yourself, forgive other people. It gives you a better outlook. It gives you a better perspective concerning your future. Once you realize the past is the past and it doesn't have to do anything with your future unless you allow it to, you can change your perspective. You can walk with a positive attitude and find something positive to say when you wake up. Even in the middle of your day, if you feel that negative spirit coming on you, find something good. Find something that makes you smile. Find something positive to say. And before you go to bed, thank God for your day. No matter how you feel like your day went or how many things went wrong, thank God anyway, because every day is a good day. Things are going to happen, and there's always some good somewhere, but we always have to check our perspective. The next P is persistence, not giving up because it's hard. Making up your mind you can do it, and not giving up until you make it happen. And there's benefits of being a persistent person. Number one, you become an expert at whatever you're trying to do because you're having to do it over and over and over again. And when you do something over and over again, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get better. So it gives you an expertise in that area if you have to keep doing it over and over again. And it motivates you, number two, to try harder. Number three, persistence is a sign of ambition. That means you know something is better out there for you. You know this is not where you're supposed to stop in life. Persistence means that I'm going to keep pushing because I feel in my spirit that there's something more out there. There's something more that God wants me to do, something more that God wants me to be. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how to do it, but I'm going to keep on pushing and I'm going to keep on trusting God because I know that I know that I know He has something else for me. And then number four, you set a good example. When you continue to push even past something that's hard and you keep going even when you get knocked down, like I said before, somebody is always watching you. They may never say a word to you, but somebody is watching how you survive. And remember that you are somebody's survival story. You are somebody's inspiration. So you have to understand. Hey, Erica, you have to understand when you're going through this life, understand you're not doing it just for you. You're doing it because somebody's going to need to remember how you made it over. Somebody's going to have to remember that Karen got knocked down. Yes, I saw Karen crying. I saw Karen sad, but then I saw her get up and dust herself off. I saw her live again. I saw her hold her head up. I saw her trusting in God again. You have to understand you are somebody's example. And when you keep pushing past it, even when it's hard, even when you don't understand, even when everybody else is not for you, you set an example for somebody else. And somebody's going to use what they saw to help them get over. Number five, your persistence. It teaches you to value success. You know, when you've had to struggle for something, when you've had to miss sleep, when you've had to do it while you were tired, when you've had to do it when other people said that you couldn't do it and you finally make it, you learn to value that success because it didn't come easy. It didn't come, it wasn't handed to you. Is what I'm saying. You had to work for it. And when you have to work that hard for something, oh, you value it. Oh, it's important to you. Oh, you're going to make sure whatever you did to get there, that you're able to stay there because you worked too hard. You've been through too much not to be there, not to value where God has taken you. Number six, it gives you experience when you persevere. It teaches you that just because one person says no, just because one door is shut in your face, just because one person rejects you does not mean that that's who you are. Does not mean that you're finished. That just means that you went to the wrong people. God has set everything up that you need there's supposed to be people to tell you no. That's how God directs you. We talked about one time about God's, sometimes God even says no to us because we're going in the wrong direction, or we're asking for something that we're not ready for. And sometimes we get our eyes on people, we get our eyes on things. And sometimes God has to let it disappoint us so that we'll get back on the right track. So it gives you experience that you didn't have by being persistent. It makes you understand that just because this didn't work, I need to try something else and I got to keep going. Number 7, you become more aware of your weaknesses when you persevere. You realize where you're lazy when you persevere, because you're going to have to fight against yourself. You're going to have to fight against your own flesh if you want it bad enough. Because a lot of times your flesh is going to be lazy and your flesh is going to say, you know what, I'm just over it. I just give up. But you've got to have the tenacity. You've got to be the one to say, nope, I'm getting up. Nope, I'm going to go do this. No, I'm going to go study. No, I'm going to get in this car and go over there where I'm supposed to go because I know I'm supposed to be there. Sometimes you have to fight against yourself. So God will show you your weaknesses when you continue to be persistent about what you're doing. And then number 8, people will judge you by your consistency. Consistency is a lost commodity because people will start stuff in a minute. And then as soon as they get tired, as soon as they get bored, or as soon as it's not giving them the attention that they want, or they're not getting a certain feeling from it anymore, even if it's something you're supposed to be doing, that's why it's not good to allow on your emotions to guide you. Because your emotions are so fickle. One minute you'll feel like doing something, next minute you won't. So people look at consistency, and it's such a valuable commodity. It's so rare because people are used to other people just giving up. They don't expect much from people now because there's so many options available to everybody. But when you find a person that gets on the path and they stay on that path, even with all that other stuff they could be doing, or all that other stuff, all those easy ways they could be taking, and all those shortcuts and this, that, and the other, but they stay focused and they stay on point and they do what they're supposed to do, that's valuable. Employers look at that. Relationships, I know I look at that in a relationship. I want somebody that's not going to give up on me just because I make a mistake, or just because, we don't get along about something. I don't want a quitter in my life, and I don't want to be a quitter to somebody else. I want to be that person that's a rock for somebody else. I want to be that person that they know they can count on all the time, not just when I'm feeling like it, not just when I'm in the mood. I talked to y'all before. I said I can't stand sometimey people that they're one way when you see them, and then 6 months later they act like you're bothering them. You can't be like that with me. You got to be consistent with me, or I'm gonna leave you alone. That's just how I am. I can't stand that. I believe in being who you are all the time. And that consistency is hard to find in people because people's mood swings are all over the place. So when you find somebody that is consistent and they persevere and they do it until the job is done, that's a rare commodity. And people are looking at that. Number 9, you learn that things that come easy bring little reward. If you've had to work hard for something, the big things that are so important are not going to come to you easy. You're going to have to put in the work. You're going to have to roll your sleeves up. You're going to have some sleepless nights. You're going to have to, shed a tear or two. Things are not going to always be smooth, but you'll learn that it's worth it. You'll learn that it's worth it. And number 10, the other benefit of persistence is, most importantly, you'll be able to create the life that you deserve. When you hang in there and you keep on pushing and you keep doing what you know is right and you're doing what God has asked you to do, God is going to give you a reward for doing that. He is a rewarder of faithful people. It's just hard to find faithful people. So that's why being persistent is so important. And that's why we need to pass that on to one another, especially our youth, and say, look, you don't give up just because it's hard. You don't give up because somebody hurt your feelings. You don't give up just because you're not where you thought you would be, in a year or two. Sometimes you're going to have to hang in there and stick it out. And sometimes you got to prove yourself to get to that next level. But that's what we need to start passing on. And even us as adults, we need to stop encouraging people to quit all the time. We encourage people to quit on their marriages. We encourage people to quit on their jobs. Social media just basically says just get rid of them. You can get somebody else. That's all it preaches on social media, is it jumping from this person to this person, this person. You don't like it, cancel it. They call that cancel culture. Somebody say something wrong, cancel them, ruin their career. That's the kind of life that's out there right now. And it's because we've lost those principles of being persistent and working and waiting on the reward at the end. Everybody wants instant gratification. And unfortunately, that's what this world is teaching everybody that they should want. But it's up to us to pass these principles on, not only to our children, also to our sisters and brothers, and encourage them to stay, in something. Encourage them to ride it out. Encourage them to make sure before they make a rash decision that they're doing everything that they could to try to make something work, and that they've looked at it from all perspectives. And then when they've done the best that they know that they can do, and if there is nothing else to be done, then make a decision. But not make a decision out of your feelings, not make a decision out of what society says you should do, not following in somebody else's footsteps. We need to encourage one another to be strong and be courageous and do what we know we need to do, and understand that God has a reward for us in the end. The next P is your perspective. It's not always about us, you guys. It's not always about our little feelings all the time. Sometimes it's bigger than us. I always like to say it's not always about you, boo. Sometimes God allows things to happen in our lives. It may be happening to you, but it may not even be about you. It may be to save somebody in your household. It may be to make somebody else get back on the right path. He allows it to happen to you because he knows you're strong enough to take it. You're strong enough to work it through and persevere to the other side. But a lot of times it's not even about us, y'all. And then we got to stop taking everything so personal. Sometimes we wear our feelings on our shoulder, and somebody may say something to us and they don't mean it the way that you see it or hear it, simply because you were in a certain type of mood. You already had some drama going on in your life, and then somebody says something and you interpret it the way you want to interpret it. Your perspective is everything, and you've got to be willing to get clarification. And I said this before, you guys, before you go off on somebody, make sure you understood what they meant by what they said, because that'll keep you from looking silly in the end. It's better to reason and sit down and talk to somebody than to run on to your own conclusion and have people encouraging you to act a fool. So your perspective is everything. Try to see things from other people's viewpoint, not just yours. Because like I say, it's not always about you. Sometimes, you need to understand what that other person is going through too. And then you need to learn to count your blessings instead of your problems. It could always be worse, you guys. Whatever you're going through, it could always be worse. And for somebody, it is worse. And sometimes your nightmare is somebody's dream. Somebody may be wishing they had your problem versus the problem that they already have. So understand that. We need to count our blessings and not our problems. And then learn from it. Whatever happens to you, learn from it. Learn how to process it, you guys. Whatever happened, figure out your part in it. Why did this happen? Why did I allow this to happen? What door did I open that this happened, to me, or this happened to my family, this, that, and the other? Learn from it, process it, and then use it as a stepping stone. Don't let it crush you and stop you from living. Because, honey, life is going to go on whether you live it or not. So it's best for you to learn how to process stuff, realize what you did wrong, to get yourself in that situation, learn from it, and keep it moving. Use it as a stepping stone. Maybe you can inform somebody else later and keep them from going down the path you went down because you learned from it. And that's what God wants us to do. He wants us to learn from every mistake. He doesn't want us sitting up with regret and hiding and feeling ashamed. He wants you to learn from that and take the lesson from that and use it for good. Use it to help somebody else. And then the next P that we need to be passing on to others is people. We need to be selective about the people that we allow in our personal space. It's okay to have associates. It's okay to be kind to people. It's okay to even spend time with people, but make sure you're not putting them in a position that they're not ready for. A lot of times we make up in our mind, oh, this is my friend, or this going to be my man, or this going to be my girl, this, that, and the other. And that person is not even on that level. And so we've got to be careful about putting people in positions that they didn't ask for, number one, that they're not ready for. And even if they think they're ready for it, sometimes they don't have experience as to where you're trying to put them. And you're putting somebody with little or no experience in a category in your life, and you expect them to excel in something that they don't even know how to do. And we do that all the time. We place people in our lives. This one's going to do this one's going to do that. But you need to check the references and make sure that they're qualified for what you're expecting them to be in your life. And if they're not, that's okay. Love people for who they are. Just quit trying to put them in positions that they're not qualified for, or they don't have experience in, or that they didn't ask for. And then learn to read the room. When you go to an event, when you go in a circle of people, learn to read the room. See if that environment is healthy for you. See if that environment, makes your spirit uneasy. See if that environment is conducive to you. Do you feel relaxed here? Do you feel like you got to watch your back all the time? Read the room and read the people. Watch how they talk to each other. Watch how they look at each other. Because sometimes people are talking good and you'll catch an eye roll, or you'll catch a up and down look. You can catch people throwing shade if you just pay attention. I'm learning to watch people, that little quick little pat. Hey girl, how you looking so good? You have to check people and pay attention to people, because sometimes you can see the fake in people real easy, but you've got to be paying attention. Okay? So learn to read the room and read the people in the room. And then ask God for a spirit of discernment to see people for who they really are. And God will also let you know if somebody's there in your life to make it better, or if they're there to be an opportunist. Some people see you have it together, and their whole purpose is to find them a cushion. And single ladies, y'all be careful out here. Some of these guys are just trying to find a place to live. Some of these guys are trying to find a place where they can get a meal. This, that, and the other. Sometimes they don't want the whole package. It's that you've got something that they want. So you've got to ask God for discernment so that He can show you what's in people. So He can show you who you need to give more time to and who you need to give less time to. Because He will show you. You might not like it, but ask God to give you a spirit of discernment so that you're not wasting your days, wasting your energy, and wasting your time with people that don't deserve it. Because you deserve the best. You just have to believe it. And then stop ignoring the signs. When people show you who they are, they will give you a glimpse. That devil does not like to sit back in the background. He gonna always pop up here and there. Might be with a little old snide remark or a little joke or whatever, but he's there. Pay attention to what people are saying. Pay attention to what people are doing, and ask God to show you what it is for what it is. Don't ignore it. Don't make excuses for people. Don't play it off. This, that, and that. Oh, well, she been hurt before. That don't have nothing to do with how she's talking to me. I haven't hurt her. So she don't need to be snapping at me just because of something else she's gone through. You feel me? So stop ignoring the signs. Okay? And watch what they do more than what they say. And let God send people into your life, whether that's your soulmate, whether that's your next business partner, or your next, employer. You just have to allow God to send the right people into your life. And we have to learn to stop following people and start following God. Okay? And then the next P is play. Simple four-letter word that people have a hard time doing, especially when you have a lot of responsibility. We forget how to play, and we think playing is just for children. There's a reason we had recess when we were little. There was a reason why there was play dates. There was time when we got sent to the park, because you got to get off of that energy. You got to have a place to express yourself. And when you're trying to be an adult, you're trying to be responsible. You got all these bills. You got this person depending on you, that person depending on you. If you don't make time to play, which is basically doing something for you, doing something that you don't have to answer to somebody for, doing something that you don't have to have an outcome for, just doing something that relaxes you, that makes you feel good about you, and just enjoying yourself, you're going to explode. At some point, you are going to overload and you're going to explode. And it's going to be detrimental to your mental health and also to your physical health, and may even be detrimental to any relationships that you have. You have to love yourself enough to just let go sometimes. Sometimes you don't need nobody depending on you. Stop calling me, turn that phone off. Just get away from everything and everybody and just have some time where you can just be you. You don't have to be anything to anybody else but you. And take some time to invest your own money in yourself. We make everybody else rich, but we forget to invest in ourselves. Whatever it's going to take to make you better, whatever you're interested in, whatever you can see yourself doing, invest in yourself. You be your first investor, your primary investor. You invest in you before you invest in everybody else. And then my last P, my last principle is simply pray. Pray. Pray about everything. Everything. Because you don't know what avenue the enemy's coming through. He's tricky. He's deceitful. He knows what you like. He knows what you done told somebody you like. He knows what you're dreaming about. So you have to constantly ask God to protect you. Because sometimes you don't know who this is coming at you. You don't know why this situation is happening like it's happening. But when you pray about everything, you put God in the middle of it. And you say, God, this is not even me. This is you. I'm putting you before me. So deal with whatever this is. Help me. Protect me from whatever this is. So pray about everything. And that way you won't be lacking anything. Okay? Because the enemy will send a counterfeit your way that looks like exactly what you wanted. Everything that you said, everything you thought of, it'll look the same, but it won't be real. And it'll fizzle out, and it will eventually show you who it is. And it's going to be temporary. Just enough to get you excited, and then it's going to drop you and let you down. But understand, in God, you are complete. You don't need anybody else. You don't have to feel alone or lonely. In God, you are complete. And unlike people, God ain't going to ghost you. God is not going to ignore your text messages. God is not going to act like, oh, I didn't hear my phone. God don't do those things. God doesn't come at you and say, oh, I was too busy. What did you need? No, God is always there. He's never too busy for you. He never sleeps. He never slumbers. You want to talk in the middle of the night? You ready? God is ready. Okay? So you never have to be alone. And then my final thought, you guys, is we need to get back to passing down those stories, those principles, whatever it took to help you make it through. to others and to generations behind us like they used to do. They used to sit down and tell stories. They used to sit down and listen to the elders. They used to take the time to invest in their youth. And a lot of times we want to buy for our youth. We want to give them the finest things. We want to make sure they drive the nicest cars. But what have we invested in them? What have we really given them? What have we passed along to them that's going to help them walk through life? Because you're not always going to be there. People aren't always going to be around them to help them. They've got to learn what they need to learn to be able to survive and be able to do it by themselves. A lot of times we cause our children and loved ones to have crutches because we always bailing them out of everything. But we need to pass these P's on to them so they'll know how to take care of themselves. They won't need you to bail them out. They won't need you to show them how to get through because those principles have been instilled and have been shared with them. They're going to look back and say, oh, I remember when my mom told me she went through something like that. This is what she did. She made it through. I remember when my aunt said, she went through this when she was my age. I remember my grandmother saying, how they treated them back then and this, that, and the other and blah, blah, blah. We need to start sharing those P's with them so those principles can help them have a foundation. And it's not too late. I don't care if your children are grown. I don't care if you don't have children. There's always somebody that you can share with, somebody that you can see that needs strengthening. And that's what the P's are. We pass those P's to help strengthen one another so that at some point we all make it to the other side. You guys, thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry my mouth was dry. I got my water right here and forgot to drink it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank y'all for those of you that post on the page, that encourage us, that just continue to uplift us because it is a blessing, because a lot of times I get busy with work and this, that, and the other, and I can get on the page and somebody's put something just what I needed. They put that on the page. So keep doing what you're doing. You're helping somebody, you guys. You blessing me. And I thank you guys, and I will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.